everyone, this is Christine D, aka Shorter Than the Easel, with something I've been meaning to do for a while now. Because I was looking through my files, I found this. This was originally going to be my version of a fix on the Vanity Fair cover for The Last Jedi. And you know what? I'm going to turn this into a little brief lesson on composition, or just a breakdown of composition and how I think the composition for this should have gone. Because right now we have kind of a C formation going on, where your eye is going from the red up here to the red in Phasmic Cape and the lightsaber, and further directed by the text. So if anything, it's more of an angled formation, which doesn't really bring you completely around the piece, because then you have this giant just negative space, which is the black mass of clothing that is General Hux's outfit and Kylo Ren's outfit. So let's see. Let's just talk about what we need to cover for this. So first off, we're gonna cover 3 basic points here. You want balance, which can be in color, placement, and negative space. You want visual appeal, and visual direction, which I can tell you right now, if you add the text in over this one, you would have more of a full circle direction compared to the C formation that is the Vanity Fair cover. So, let's talk about balance. So let's actually bring this up here. Let's hide that. And let's swap to a different color. And let's talk about the balance. Now, let's start with visual placement instead of color, because visual placement can be either symmetrical, which, okay, that was a really bad line, but symmetrical, which things being off-center can often be very good for a composition depending on the subject matter and the picture itself. Because more often than not, one of the biggest things you'll be taught is not to put something directly in the center, because it can be very boring, it can be very basic. So I do like the fact that he's not centered, but at the same time I kind of wish he was, because where you have the space here, you'd also have a space separating him from Hux. So even though they'd still be next to each other, there would still be some sort of divider, whereas with the actual setup they have, them being overlapped creates more of a color tangent. And tangents in art can be a rather big no-no. A lot of people will say you don't want a tangent, you don't want things directly on top of each other. You want something overlapping like that, not necessarily directly on top of each other. And I would consider this a color tangent, because you have 2 very dark pieces of clothing on top of each other. So if you squint, this is all just negative space. It's a black mass of clothing. This just feels empty. It feels empty, and your eye is completely drawn away from it, especially given the gray background. So I would have liked it better if he was more centered, so you'd still have a barrier like this over here, creating some sort of break. So there's placement. Negative space you don't really have to worry about too much in this piece because you have the text. Because the text itself sort of helps. Like, if this were maybe higher, or if they brought some of this text up here, that could have broken up some of the negative space created by their clothing. But for the most part, because there's so much text, you don't have to worry about negative space as much for this piece. But, again, you want something that goes around. And this just stops. Then the final one, which I had as my first point in the list, was color. So a balance in color, they do have a balance in color going on with the reds, and a little bit in the color in the font for Star Wars and their heads, which is a very odd choice for balance, but it works. It sort of makes up for the formation. But my fix for this, placement-wise, actually this kind of goes into visual placement as... Was it visual placement? Yeah, visual direction and visual appeal. Now, to me, this isn't that appealing, because like I said, you have all this darkness and then your eye is just drawn to her armor. So Kylo and Hux kind of just disappear. And you don't want that when you want all three of them to be the focus. So I swapped Kylo and Phasma, because, to be honest, Phasma should get more recognition. But I swapped them, so you have the red in her cape, and the red in the lightsaber down here, but I also swapped the direction the lightsaber was facing. That way your eye isn't also partly being drawn off page, because the lightsaber is facing towards the corner. So I brought that in, and with the text, you'd have the banner over here, so you'd still have the red there, but you'd also have lighting, because you'd have all the light coming off of the lightsaber, so you'd have light being reflected on Phasma's armor, some on her cape, some on Kylo Ren's clothing, which would break up the darkness in his outfit, and possibly even some very faint light over here on Hux. So you'd have even just hints of red carrying you around the piece, which is what you want, especially in a picture that is mostly dark colored, because you have like these darker grays in the background, you have the blacks in their outfit, you have the shading in her armor, and you want something to carry you throughout the piece without things getting muddied and just blending in. Because I can't emphasize this more, because this is creating negative space. Negative space. In this case, negative space can be used beautifully in composition if you set it up right. But this is creating unintentional negative space. And it's negative. It's negatively negative space. So, with this much red and the silver in her armor, that would be breaking things up and creating more of a visual appeal to it. So you don't have these two meshing together to create a muddy mass of one color, and you have all the detail in her armor, all of the reflections, you have all of this lighting going on, which would draw you to the center, but because there'd be so much shading too, that would be drawing you around because it would be connecting with her outfits. So let's see, that is... Now let's end this talking about the visual direction. Like I said, this has more of a C, maybe even a G if you want to count that little thing right there. But this, I just feel like direction's all over the place. And it's just going in this direction. You aren't drawn to Hux or Kylo Ren. The only thing you really see of them is their faces. That's it. You don't see their costumes, you don't see anything, you just see floating heads. Floating heads that sort of blend in with the text. And that's not what you want. More often than not, you want something that will bring you around the piece. Something that brings you to every detail you want the viewer to see. You want it to help you tell whatever story you want to tell with the piece. And even if you're not telling a story with the piece, you want people to look at the piece. And you want to guide the eye. And in swapping things around, like swapping which way the lightsaber faces, flip-flopping where these two are, it creates a balance that you want in a piece. Because then you have this, you have all of just like the reflective lighting in her armor and everything. You have light being reflected onto his clothes, light being reflected onto the staff, light being reflected onto her cape, and maybe even a little over here on Hux. You have something to draw the eye around to where it needs to go. And that is the most important thing in composition. Directing the viewer's gaze to where you want it to be. So hopefully this has helped some of you out. Hopefully my rambling makes some sense. And if you guys want more videos like this, if you want me to break down more things like maybe character design or something, or even like color theory and something like that, leave a comment below. Tell me what you guys want to see, because I think these videos are fun to do. And if it can help you even in some weird way through my rambling, that's awesome. Because granted, I'm not a professional artist, but I do consider myself an artist. It's something I've been going to school for years. I've taken classes. I've been teaching myself plenty of things. I've been to art shows. I've been in art shows, for crying out loud. It's like I have shops. I think about design all the time. I work in a retail job where display is important. And display, in a sense, is like composition. It all comes back to art for me somehow, even in the most minute way. So, I'm passionate about it, and if I can help others with it, that would be awesome. So again, if you guys want to see more videos like this, comment below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!